Today, we're going to turn a regular old notebook into an awesome, aesthetically pleasing spellbook looking thing. So, what I have here are 3 books that I've made in the past. This one was a regular old notebook. It had a very boring, basic cover, and I turned it into something what I think is neat. These 2 books here were actually novels that I changed and made their covers look more interesting and appealing because their original covers did not look that great. For example, here, this book used to look like this. So I thought, let me turn this book into something that will look cooler on my shelf than the history of Lovecraft. So this is what I did, and I made magic happen. Same thing for this one, where you see it has a cool looking question mark on it that I made. This book used to look like this. With a little bit of patience and a little bit of art supplies, turn it into something that looks pretty neat. I'm going to change this notebook, which has these flowers on it. It's got this gray color to it. I have a very limited supply of paint and other supplies, and I'm going to turn this book into something that looks a little bit more like this. Maybe not as intricate, but that's the idea. So stay tuned for some of that. Alright, so first things first is let me show you my supplies. So the first thing we have here is my notebook. So if you're going to do this at home, you can use any book you want, whether you want it to be an actual novel or a blank school book. Whatever you want. Just make sure that it's something that you don't mind messing with. So that's the first thing, is having a notebook. Second thing is make sure it's a hardcover notebook, so that's like 1.2. So make sure it's a hardcover notebook. The next thing that you would want is tissue paper. So this is just some tissue paper left over from presents and gift wrap. It doesn't matter the color because we're going to paint over it anyway. So I got my tissue paper. Having the tissue paper stick to your notebook, you're going to need Mod Podge. This is the Mod Podge that I use. This will be the best thing you'll use for this activity. Next, you're going to need your paints. Now, I mentioned before I have a very limited supply of paint, so I just have some primary and secondary colors. I did manage to use these colors in the past to make nice browns for this book, and then I had some gold sprinkled on top to give it such a nice leather looking feel to it. Something like this, I used a lot of black, which is why I don't have a lot of black left over. With the other notebook, I also used a lot of black, but I also used gray and silver for those colors. So I don't know exactly what color I'm going to go for, and that's pretty much it for all the supplies that you will need. I have, this is really neat, it's a sun and a moon that I think I'm going to use, but I don't want to just use this and have a flat surface, so I think I'm going to use some craft foam to cut it out, or what I've used for this design was I actually used hot glue, and I designed this using hot glue and just painted over it. So we'll see what the designs are. Let's get to crafting. I'm going to go ahead and put my hair up so we can go ahead and do this. Let's get started with the outside design, and then we can get started with coating it in our tissue paper. I'm going to go ahead and start by making some outside designs I'm going to have on the outside of my notebook. I have my hot glue currently warming up, so hopefully by the time I've figured out what designs I want, the hot glue will be ready. So let me grab my craft foam. I have very thin craft foam, so hopefully it's not going to be too raised, but raised enough to actually make a nice looking feel to my notebook. So let's get started. I'm going to start by having the corners have some nice little triangle. That looks very small. I'm going to make that bigger. Okay, so most of the time when we're crafting, we forget to think about the opposite side. So I have my 4 corners on one side. Let's see. 3. And you know what? This looks a little small now, but you know what? That's okay. 4. 4 corners on the one side, and now I'm going to mimic that and do 4 corners on the opposite end. So let me just get another 4. I know, very interesting. I'll speed this up in post so you don't have to sit through a very boring video of me tracing out triangles and cutting things out. Now the thing is, if you mess up, that's okay, because it doesn't have to be perfect. The beauty of making something look old-timey, especially if you're making it look like an old-timey spellbook, spellbooks aren't perfect. Nah, like here, the corner of my notebook is actually kind of bent and messed up right here. So this is actually not gonna be perfect, but it's gonna be good enough, which is always my style. When I'm designing something, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. Hey! So my hot glue gun is still warming up. So, okay, so I got my 4 corners. Actually, I got my 8 corners, so I'm gonna put 4 corners there. 4 corners there. Now, I think I'm gonna have a moon and a sun, or a sun and a moon, or one or the other. Ooh, I'm gonna have the moon up here, and then I'm gonna have the sun down here. And then I'm gonna have that on only the one side. Yeah, that's gonna look cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to trace this so I get that nice lift. Now, I'm not just gonna leave it as a crescent moon and a sun on a piece of foam. I'm not just gonna do that. I think I'm also going to raise this up by coating it completely in hot glue, so that way it's more raised. Maybe giving it a nice hot glue border, making it look nice and messy. I think that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to make this look nice and messy. Aha! Here's my sun and moon. Ta-da! Now it's time to cut this out. Nailed it. Done. Now, I'm not quite done before I start gluing these on. So the next thing I want to do is what I have done on this book. I added like nice little ridges. Then we'll start gluing it on. Beautiful! Let's make more of these. There we go. We got our 4 for the edges. And we'll save this. Okay, let me get that glue gun. So let's just glue these bad boys. Hot! Hot! Be very careful, this is really hot. Yay! There we go! Now we're gonna do the opposite side. That's good enough! Backside's done. Now it's time for the edges. That's a bit messy. That's a bit messy. Ta-da! That's what that looks like so far. Got myself some more glue. I'm going to put a lot of glue so it's nice and goopy and thick. Smash, 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 smash. Hot! It's not that hot. It's still hot. I advise you to be careful. Smush, smush, smush. I advise you guys to be very careful when working with molten hot glue. Do I want little stars? I kinda do. Now, if you notice, I'm just using the hot glue gun rather than making stars out of craft foam because, just like with this design, I made this completely in freehand. You can tell by how uneven it is. But with my hot glue gun, I didn't use any foam for that. I'm just going to do some generic lines, star. Awesome. So if you guys could see that, looks pretty neat. And it looks pretty neat. Now it's time to smother it with Mod Podge and then with tissue paper. To get started, you're just going to cover the book with the Mod Podge and have tissue paper crumpled up as you place it on top. Alright, so let me just get my tissue paper ready for me to just grab. So the idea is you want the crumpled paper as you're putting it on your book to make that crumpled effect on the old-timey spell book that we're creating. So let's just start by globbing on Mod Podge. And we're just going to keep doing this until we have a nice, thick consistency of the pattern. I don't want it to be too thin. Also, when this Mod Podge dries, it's going to dry nice and thick. Now, we're going to go ahead and let this sit until it dries. You can use like a blow dryer if you want to really speed things up or have a fan on it. Or you can just let it air dry. I'm gonna just let this sit and dry so then I can flip it over and do the other side. I did 3 coats. It took only 1 piece of crumpled up tissue paper, just torn up with 3 layers on the one side. And that's about what you would want, because when it dries, it's gonna have a nice thickness to it, and then you paint over it. When it's all done and painted, do a last coat of Mod Podge to seal it all, so that way it doesn't chip off. And this is what it's gonna look like on the inside. It's just gonna stick to the inside so it doesn't come off. It doesn't peel off. That is the goal. All right, so by the time we check back in, we're gonna be ready to flip this over and do the other side. Okay, so it looks like it's nice and dry. Now it's time to do the opposite side. What I did this time was I pre-sized some of my tissue paper so that way I wouldn't have to do some unnecessary tears. So let me crumple this up. Nice and crumpled. Crumple this up. And crumple this up. And I have my other tissue paper in the corner of the table in case I need more. So we're going to start off by covering the rest of these edges down. That's where I'm going to start. Doesn't look half bad so far. Let me just get this edge a little bit more. Final coat. There we go. So let that sit and dry. I left this hang over so it can kind of cover into here, and then I will go ahead and touch this up. But now we sit and wait and play the drying game. Okay, so now it is all dry, and what you guys didn't see that I did off camera was I actually went in and glued the inside pages down so that way they would just stick without flopping over. And all I did was fold it over, take the Mod Podge, and then kind of paint it down so it would stay. And I had to wait for it to dry on both sides, and I thought, let me just do this off camera so now we can move into the painting, which is what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna pick certain colors. Because I kind of have a moon and a sun, I think I'm gonna go for a space color, so that's purple. Purple requires you to use red and blue, mix them together, and I'm going to top it off with some silver. So let's start by mixing the colors. So It does look purple when you look at it. I'm not the best when it comes to mixing paints or using paint, so I am not this kind of artist. So we'll see how this turns out. If I split open the book, I might actually be able to paint both sides at once. Let's start painting. Paintbrush in hand, and we're just going for it. That's actually not a bad purple. Now, I don't have a technique when it comes to painting. I'm not the best painter that you will ever meet. And I did mention my style is messy, but it works. Unfortunately, the stars kind of look like little blobs. Oh well. So this is going to be mostly silver on top with purple peeping through on the underside. The idea is to not have any white peeping through from the tissue paper, or whatever color tissue paper you ended up using. The first coat is done drying. On to the second coat. I'm really globbing it on right now. Just want a nice thick coat of paint. I may not be the best painter, but my method seems to be working. That's a pretty decent second coat, if I do say so myself. Look. Oh, that's wet. That's definitely... Look at my mess. Look at this. Ooh, nice. I'm gonna let this sit and dry, and then I'm gonna flip it over and do the inside pages. I might have to do this off screen so that way I can have it dry faster, and then we're gonna finish it off with the silver coat. Okay, so now the purple paint is all dry on both the outside and the inside, and yeah, I ended up painting the entire inside just because why not? So now it is time for me to add the silver paint. What I have done in the past with my other gold and silver books that I've made, I put the paint on my fingers and then I kind of painted with my fingers so that way all the little bumps got painted instead of the entire thing. So I'm going to attempt to do that this time. Here we go. I believe there's a painting method called the dry brush method, but I'm not anywhere near as skilled as a painter to even attempt that. Now I'm going to use a dry paintbrush method. I'd say maybe the back is not that great. The front's okay. The paint's pretty much already dry, to be honest. It's very messy. I don't think I globbed on enough layers of tissue paper, at least on the back. But it's okay. No big deal. Well, I'd say the front cover doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look half bad. Not even the back that I feel like I messed up on. Looks pretty good. Just kind of reinforce the silver on the edges here. I want to make those like actually silver. I say that this paint dries really fast. So I'm just gonna go wash up, and then we can do the absolute final touches, which is coating it in Mod Podge once again, so that way the paint doesn't flake or peel off. Okay, so that's had some time to dry. Now it's time to apply our final touches with Mod Podge to seal everything in. I hope I'm not putting too much on. Alright, so now we just have to wait for this layer to dry, do the inside, and that's it. We're done. So let's check this out after it's done drying and see how it turned out. Alright guys, this is the final product. We have finished. I don't think it came out too bad. It did well. It looks great with all my other books in this collection. It's mostly silver with purple peeping through on the underside. You can see the moon, the sun, and some of my star details a little more clearly now that everything is done and completed. So by all means, decorate away when you guys are doing this for yourselves. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more videos in the future. Bye!